Hello everybody, Raven Knight here, and welcome back to our series going through the life of David. Welcome back if you are a returning viewer of this. If you're brand new, welcome. I hope you'll take the time to watch the full series on day one. If you have a Bible, and I hope you do, please turn it to 2 Samuel chapter 11. We're going to be talking about probably the darkest moment in David's life, one of the most difficult and trying moments he's ever had. And as you turn there, I'll go ahead and give you guys a preamble for those of you who are new. If you want to know why we're talking about David, because you might think, why David? Why are we talking about this guy? David is defined in the Bible as a man after God's own heart, and he is mentioned constantly in the Old Testament and in the New Testament. In fact, he's responsible for writing many of the Psalms himself. So when thinking about David, he was clearly a man that God loved, clearly a man that was very close to God, and yet he was a very flawed man. He made a lot of mistakes. And we can learn a lot from the life of David, because I think as we study David, we start to see a lot of ourselves. If there's one thing you can say great about the Bible, is it does not shy away from talking down about its heroes. It does not lie or try to sugarcoat the things its heroes did badly. And when David does wrong, as we're going to see today, he does really wrong. Now, a couple days ago, when we were doing a previous entry on this, we talked about drifting away from God, drifting away from God, our connection to God. And we're going to talk a lot more about that today. We're going to talk about the 6 steps of drift through David today. What are the 6 steps of drift? And what drift essentially means is, if you've ever gone out to the beach, right? If you've gone out to the beach, you set down your umbrella, all your stuff, you know where your family is, you run out into the water, start playing around, you're having a great time. But then after about maybe 10-15 minutes, you take a look up and you see that you have started to move away from where you originally started. You may not have noticed it, you may not have felt it, you were probably not conscious of it, but you have drifted away from where you were supposed to be, and now your umbrella and all your stuff and your family is further away from you than you thought. You've drifted either out to sea or down the beach, what have you. You've drifted away, and now you've got to work to get back there. So what does it look like to drift? What are the 6 steps of drift? We're going to follow David today. The first step, if you take notes on these, please do. Please take notes on these, by the way. All you have to do is write down these 6 steps so that you're aware of them. The first step is complacency, and we see that in chapter 11, verse 1. In the spring, at the time when kings go off to war, David sent Joab out with the king's men and the whole Israelite army. They destroyed the Ammonites and besieged Rabbah, but David remained in Jerusalem. Now take note of that. Take note of that first part in verse 1. When this is in the spring, at the time when kings go off to war, David remained in Jerusalem. So David isn't even going out to do his job. Now, to give you a bit of background right now, David became king when he was 30. He's 50 now. He's been king for 20 years. He's been doing pretty well. And he's probably gotten a little laid back. He's a little bit complacent now. We're cool. I don't need to go to war. the Israelites are strong enough to take care of themselves. I'm going to send Joab out with my men, and we're going to go besiege these cities. We're going to go conquer these guys. I think I'll stay home. I think I'll hang out at home. So we're already seeing in verse 1 that we're starting down the first step of drift, complacency. And I'm sure some of you have gotten to your point in your life where you've gotten complacent, where you've just said, man, things are cool. Things are okay. I don't need to worry about nothing. Everything's going my way. Now, don't misunderstand me. It's not a bad thing when things are going your way. It's not necessarily a sign that something's wrong when everything's okay. I'm not saying that. But what I am saying is once you step into complacency, that's already a sign that drift is going to start, because complacency allows for idleness, and idleness is the devil's workshop. When you become idle in your complacency, when you don't take action, something's wrong, because eventually the devil will use that for his own ends. The second step of drift is isolation, and we see that in verse 2. One evening, David got up from his bed and walked around on the roof of the palace. From the roof, he saw a woman bathing. That woman was very beautiful, and we'll stop there. Let's stop there and just read that first part. One evening, David got up from his bed and walked around on the roof of the palace. He was alone. He was away from his people. He was away from his family. He was away from his attendants. He just got out of bed and said, I'm going to take a walk to the roof. He separated himself from everything. Right now, he's not doing his job. He's not off fighting the wars for his kingdom. He's not off guiding his people. He's staying at home, chilling out, and saying, you know what, I think I'll go off by myself for a little while. And I'll tell you the truth, guys, when you are all alone. Now, I'm not saying that being alone is a bad thing, again. But what I'm saying is, this sets the stage for the next step. This sets the stage for step number 3, which we're about to talk about. But please understand, here's the thing. When life is going good for you, when things are working out, that's not a bad thing. When you're by yourself, just hanging out, that's not a bad thing. But know that complacency and isolation, especially willful isolation, like with what David's doing here, can be dangerous because it leads to the third step of drift, temptation. Temptation is the third step of drift. Let's read verse 2 and then go into verse 3. One evening, David got up from his bed and walked around on the roof of the palace. From the roof, he saw a woman bathing. The woman was very beautiful. Verse 3, and David sent someone to find out about her. The man said, she is Bathsheba, the daughter of Eliam, and the wife of Uriah the Hittite. Now, I want you to take notice of something. David looked out on his roof, and he saw this woman bathing. And she was gorgeous. And the first thing David does is, who is that lady? Who is that woman? He's getting tempted. He wants that woman, so he wants to know about her. And note something else. David was warned who she was. Notice what his attendant said. His attendant said, she is Bathsheba, the daughter of Eliam, and the wife of Uriah the Hittite. Let me translate that. She's someone's woman. One thing that I learned a long time ago, one of the things about pornography that we tend to forget, is that the woman on the screen is someone's daughter, someone's mother, someone's wife. That person is someone's woman or someone's girl. And yet, pornography tricks us into turning them into an object of flesh. That's the trap of pornography. And here we see this kind of displayed here. David has seen Bathsheba bathing. He's very interested in her. He wants to know more about her. His attendant says, warning, David, hold on, David. This woman is someone's daughter, and she's also someone's wife. You need to back down. You need to stop. You need to stop right here. Does David stop? The fourth step of drift, and probably the most dangerous step of drift, is action. Once you've fallen for temptation, you take action. We'll come back to temptation in a minute. I want to talk about temptation, but before we get to it, let's talk about action, because I want you to see what David did when he was tempted. So he's been warned, but then verse 4, then David sent messengers to get her. She came to him, and he slept with her. Now she was purifying herself from her monthly uncleanliness. Then she went back home. The woman conceived and sent word to David saying, I am pregnant. So, David decided not to go do his job as the king of Israel and go to the wars. He decided to go off by himself and just hang out. He saw a woman bathing, got very excited, wanted to know about her, was warned, she's already someone's woman and is someone's daughter. You need to back off. And David said, bring her to me. And he slept with her. And now she's pregnant. The deed is done. Now, some of you may be saying, Raven, I've got a bit of a problem. Let's say that I do come across temptation, like what David is doing here. Let's say that I come across temptation. What am I supposed to do? I'm only human and I'm weak. How do I deal with this? I'm glad you asked. It's a good question, because we are weak. It is easy for us to fall to temptation. So what do? There was a theologian, and I forget his name now. My pastor brought him up in a sermon not too long ago, and I've forgotten his name. But he had a great quote that I want to use here. It is far easier for us to flee from temptation than it is for us to resist sin. It is far easier for us to flee from temptation than to resist sin. Now let me tell you what I mean by that. It is easier for us to close the window when a porn site comes up than it is for us to stop ourselves from acting on that porn site. It is easier to hit the X button than it is for us to resist once it's opened. I want you to turn your Bibles, if you have one, to 2 Timothy 2:22. I love this verse, and I remember it because it's the 2222. 2 Timothy 2:22. So 2 Timothy 2:22 says, Flee the evil desires of youth and pursue righteousness, faith, love, and peace, along with all those who call on the Lord out of a pure heart. Flee the evil desires of youth. Flee. And some of you say, I don't run from anything. You run from this. You run as fast as you can. I've heard some people try to say that they resist temptation by opening up, obviously, porn sites or put themselves in temptation areas and then just try to resist. You're not going to do well. You are not going to do well. You're just not. The Bible says flee. Run away from it. Get away from it. And that's what David was warned about. When he asked, who is this woman? The message was, she is someone's wife and someone's daughter. You need to walk away. And David did not. And he gave in to his temptation. And they did it. And now David's in trouble. David is in deep trouble because not only did he do it with Bathsheba, she's now pregnant. Well, that leads to the fifth step of drift, the cover-up. The cover-up. Because whenever we do something wrong, it is our instinct to try to cover it up, isn't it? We did something bad. We hurt someone. We lied about something. We did something that we know we shouldn't have done. Well, now we better make sure no one catches us. So let's see how David covers it up. In chapter 11, verse 6, he says, so David sent this word to Joab, send me Uriah the Hittite. And Joab sent him to David. When Uriah came to him, David asked him how Joab was, how the soldiers were, and how the war was going. Then David said to Uriah, go down to your house and wash your feet. So Uriah left the palace, and a gift from the king was sent after him. But Uriah slept at the entrance of the palace with all his master's servants, and did not go down to his house. David was told Uriah did not go home, so he asked Uriah, haven't you just come from a military campaign? Why didn't you go home? Uriah said to David, the ark and Israel and Judah are staying in tents, and my commander Joab and my lord's men are camped in the open country. How could I go to my house to eat and drink and make love to my wife? As surely as you live, I will not do such a thing. Look at old Uriah here. You know what David's trying to do. His plan is, let's get Uriah home to his wife. They'll make love. They'll have sex. And so when it comes out that she's pregnant, he'll just assume the kid's his. Not a big deal. We can fix this. But what does Uriah do? He's too good a guy. He's a better man than David's being right now because he says, my lord, my king, my country's at war. My comrades are at war. My leader's at war. I can't do this. That'd be unfair to them. They're all risking their lives while I'm here, and I'm going to go home and eat and make love to my wife. No, I'm not doing that, man. I'm not doing that. That would be unfair to my people. Well, David might need to say something like, man, Uriah, you're a better man than me. But nope, David's not done. He's got a plan B. So, moving on. Verse 12, then David said to him, stay here one more day, and tomorrow I will send you back. So Uriah remained in Jerusalem that day and the next. At David's invitation, he ate and drank with him, and David made him drunk. But in the evening, Uriah went out to sleep in his mat among his master's servants. He did not go home. So again, he's trying again. Well, let's get him drunk. If I get him really drunk, he'll want to go home and make love. I'll do that. But he still won't do it. Even drunk, Uriah is a good man. You know what, David? This is the moment where David should probably go, you know what? This is wrong. I need to just be honest. Nope. We got a plan C, and it's plan C that will shock you. Verse 14, in the morning, David wrote a letter to Joab and sent it with Uriah. In it, he wrote, put Uriah out in front where the fighting is fiercest, then withdraw from him so he will be struck down and die. So while Joab in the city under siege, he put Uriah at a place where he knew the strongest defenders were. When the men of the city came out and fought against Joab, some of the men in David's army fell. Moreover, Uriah the Hittite died. That was David's final plan. If I can't get him to make love to his wife, I'll just make sure he never lives to find out. I'll have him killed on the battlefield. Put him where the fighting's fiercest, and make sure he dies in the battlefield. That was cold and calculated, but guess what, guys? It actually gets worse. In verse 18, Joab sent David a full account of the battle. He instructed the messenger, when you have finished giving the king his account of the battle, the king's anger may flare up, and he may ask you, why did you get so close to the city to fight? Didn't you know they would shoot arrows from the walls? Who killed Abimelech, son of Jerubasheth? Don't a woman drop an upper millstone from the wall so that he died in Thebes? Why did you get so close to the wall? If you ask you this and say to him, moreover, your servant Uriah the Hittite is dead. So in other words, what Joab is saying to this messenger is, hey, look, we got to give an account to David. We got to let him know. He's probably going to be upset. He's going to say, why did you let all these people die? Why did you get so close to the wall? You knew it was dangerous. You knew that was wrong. I don't even know why you gave the order. You told me to put Uriah the Hittite up there. You told me to do that so that he would die. And it didn't just kill him. It killed a lot of other people. I don't know why you wanted me to do that, but I've done what you told me to do. Basically, Joab is saying, before you get mad at me for this stupid decision you made me do, Uriah the Hittite is dead like you asked, so I don't know why you wanted him dead, but it cost us a lot. So before you get mad at me, David, I did what you asked me to do. In other words, David, that was a dumb decision. I don't know why you made it. But before you get mad at me for the lives we lost, know that I completed your order. So in verse 22, the messenger sent out, and when he arrived, he told David everything Joab had sent him to say. The messenger said to David, the men overpowered us and came out against us in the open, but we drove them back to the entrance of the city gate. Then the archers shot arrows at your servants from the wall, and some of the king's men died. Moreover, your servant Uriah the Hittite is dead. Verse 25, this is where it gets worse, guys. David told the messenger, say this to Joab, don't let this upset you. The sword devours one as well as another. Press the attack against the city and destroy it. Say this to encourage Joab. Can you believe that? Let's read that again. He told the messenger, verse 25, say this to Joab, don't let this upset you. The sword devours one as well as another. Press the attack. Yeah, I know men died. I know that I made a decision that cost lives, but it's okay, man. Push on into the city. One man is as good as another. Push on into the city. It's essentially, that's what happens. Keep going. He didn't even act surprised. He didn't act upset. He didn't act angry. He just said, yep, it's all right. Go for it. And I'll tell you why. This is the true danger as you drift further and further and further from God. You start to become callous. You stop feeling the Lord's love for things. And eventually you become something ugly, something you don't recognize. David's attempt to cover up his own sin had turned him into something dark. And we're getting to the last step of drift. The sixth step. Consequences. Consequences are the sixth step of sin. Now you might think, well, what consequence? He covered it up. Uriah is dead. And you start to think that too in verse 26. When Uriah's wife heard that her husband was dead, she mourned for him. After the time of mourning was over, David had her brought to his house, and she became his wife and bore him a son. Well, that looks good. For David, anyway. He covered it up. He got away with it. Uriah is dead. No one's going to find out about what he did. And now he gets to keep Bathsheba for himself. She's now his wife, and everyone will just assume, okay, they had a son together. Everything's cool, but there's one part at the end of verse 27 that stands out. But the thing David had done displeased the Lord. And we're going to talk about how the Lord punishes David in chapter 12 next time. But that last bit is the consequence. But the thing David had done displeased the Lord. There's a question I get asked a lot about revenge. The Bible says that vengeance belongs to the Lord. And it's true. God says, don't seek out revenge. Leave that to me. I will get vengeance. And it's true. The Lord will get vengeance for us. It's not our place to seek it. It's God's place, because God is the ultimate judge. Even if you think that you got away with it, even if you think, hey, I sinned, but no one knows, and I'm not going to get in trouble for it. No one's going to find out. There is someone who knows. And you may have to face the consequences of that. Now you might say, well, hold on. I thought God forgives sin. I thought God forgives sin. Why would he punish me if he forgives? Because forgiveness does not mean a freedom from consequences. Think about it like this. If I have a coffee table, if I have a table and I take a hammer and I start hammering nails into that coffee table, just a bunch of nails, you know what? Eventually I might say, oh man, I shouldn't have done that. I shouldn't have hammered all these nails into the coffee table. Let me pull them out. So I could pull out every single nail. That coffee table's still going to have those holes. That coffee table's still going to have that damage in it. I may be forgiven. I may remove the nail, but the damage is done. What forgiveness means is it won't be held against us by God in the final judgment. God's not going to hold it against us. That doesn't mean that physical and earthly consequences aren't coming. If I commit murder, God will forgive me for that if I am truly repentant. That doesn't mean I get a free get out of jail free card. David did wrong. Not only did he commit adultery, he killed a man to keep himself from being discovered. And now, the Lord is upset. And in chapter 12, we're going to talk about what the Lord does. It's a really heavy chapter. We'll get to that next time now. The 6 steps of drift: complacency, isolation, temptation, action, cover up, consequence. Many of you right now probably understand some of these positions, and some of you may even be in the first 2 right now. You may be complacent with your life and your position in it, or you may be willfully absent or isolated from friends, family, and God. I'm not saying that alone time and happiness are a bad thing. I'm saying they are a recipe for danger if you do not be careful. I can't tell you how many times I found myself alone and pleased, and temptation has come knocking. It is quite often in the moments where we are in these situations where temptation knocks at the door and says, hey, want to have some fun? Want to get away with something? But as I said before, 2 Timothy 2:22, flee. Run away from it. Close the browser. Find a friend. Tell someone, I'm struggling with this. I'm having to fight this. That's where we'll wrap up today. I hope you guys enjoyed. I had a great time with this. Going through the life of David, guys, it's crazy. It is absolutely crazy. David is such a fascinating person. He's done a lot of great things. He's done a lot of bad things. Next time we're going to talk about the consequences of the bad. And I look forward to that day next week. But until then, I will see you in my next video. Take care, guys.